there is a whisper that travels through the corridors of forgotten libraries and dust-covered monasteries. A whisper that says, the greatest secrets were never truly hidden, only overlooked. And among these secrets lies a question, almost too electrifying for mainstream theology to entertain. Why does Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never once say, "Worship me"? Not even subtly, not even in a symbolic way. Instead, he speaks like a guide, a revealer, a mirror held up to the seeker's own soul. Tonight, we journey into that mystery. Imagine for a moment that the teachings of Jesus were not meant to build monuments of stone, nor to establish power structures, but to ignite something ancient, something already sleeping inside you. The Gospel of Thomas, buried for nearly 2,000 years in the sands of Egypt, does not present a Jesus who seeks reverence, but one who urges awakening. A teacher who refuses the throne so that you may claim your own inner kingdom. This is not the Jesus of rituals, not the Jesus of ceremony. This is the Jesus of direct knowing, of gnosis. In this video, we're going to peel back the layers of doctrine, dogma, and centuries of institutional interpretation. We'll step into the world of early mystical Christianity, where seekers didn't simply follow, they experienced. We'll explore why the Gospel of Thomas presents a radically different tone from the canonical Gospels, how ancient spiritual traditions emphasized self-realization over worship, what Jesus' silence on worship truly reveals about the path he was offering, and why this message may have been too dangerous, too liberating, to preserve openly. This isn't about rejecting anything. It's about rediscovering what may have been forgotten, or perhaps intentionally obscured. So settle in, breathe deeply, and allow your mind to open. Because the mystery of why Jesus never said, "Worship me," in the Gospel of Thomas is more than an academic curiosity. It's a doorway, one that leads into the heart of esoteric wisdom, the nature of spiritual authority, and ultimately, the hidden power within you. To understand why Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never commands worship, we must first step backward, far beyond the polished halls of later Christianity, into the turbulent, mystical, and often chaotic landscape of the 1st and 2nd centuries. A time when Christianity was not one faith, but a constellation of interpretations, each shimmering with its own truth, its own emphasis, its own sacred flame. Picture the deserts of Egypt. Monks, mystics, and seekers wander in silence. They carry fragments of teachings, whispered sayings, scrolls hidden in clay jars. Some of these teachings speak of miracles, others of ethics, but some cut straight to the core of human consciousness. The Gospel of Thomas belongs to this third category. While the canonical Gospels tell a story, birth, death, resurrection, the Gospel of Thomas gives something different, sayings, pure, distilled, enigmatic utterances that sound less like religious commandments and more like the riddles of a sage from the ancient mystery schools. For centuries, mainstream theologians didn't even know this text existed. It vanished from recorded history, sealed away in the deserts near Nag Hammadi until its rediscovery in 1945. But before it disappeared, it circulated among early Christian groups who were less interested in worshiping a figure and more interested in becoming what that figure represented. And this is where the context turns philosophical. In the ancient world, spiritual traditions tended to fall into two broad categories: exoteric, designed for the public, emphasizing ritual, obedience, and outer forms, and esoteric, reserved for the few, the prepared, emphasizing inner transformation. The Gospel of Thomas aligns unmistakably with the esoteric. When Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you," he echoes the Hermetic sages of Alexandria, the mystics of Qumran, even the Upanishadic seers of the East. This was not the language of a figure seeking worship. It was the language of a guide awakening the divine spark already present within each soul. And yet, history took a different path. As Christianity moved into the Roman Empire, something shifted. The faith began to institutionalize, to build structure, hierarchy, authority. A religion centered on direct personal revelation is difficult to control. A religion centered on worship is far easier to unify. Worship creates direction. Direction creates hierarchy. Hierarchy creates power. This is not inherently evil, but it is historically undeniable. Texts like the Gospel of Thomas, which emphasized inner revelation over external obedience, became inconvenient. They offered no leverage for institutions, no throne for bishops, no clear boundary between teacher and student. They were not suppressed because they were heretical. They were suppressed because they were dangerously liberating. The philosophical climate of late antiquity valued certainty over mystery, order over exploration, and authority over inner sovereignty. In that environment, a Jesus who says, "Split a piece of wood and I am there," was far too expansive, too intimate, too uncontrollable. Thus, the Gospel of Thomas faded into the shadows, waiting for the modern world, an age hungry for inner experience and weary of institutions, to rediscover it. To understand why Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never says, "Worship me," we have to listen, not with the ears, but with the inner senses, to the tone of this text, because Thomas doesn't present Jesus as a distant divine monarch seated on a cosmic throne. It reveals him as something far more intimate and far more provocative. It shows him as a master who wants you to see, not to bow. Imagine sitting in the presence of such a teacher. There is no incense thickening the air, no choir rising in rehearsed harmony, no gilded altar separating you from the sacred. Instead, Jesus speaks in short, piercing sentences, like sparks meant to ignite something already buried inside you. His sayings don't ask for devotion. They demand comprehension. They demand awakening. Consider one of his most enigmatic lines: "When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known." This is not the voice of someone seeking worship. It is the voice of a guide urging self-knowledge, a mystic inviting the listener to peel back the illusions of identity and touch the luminous core beneath. Why is this significant? Because worship, by its nature, is vertical. It establishes a hierarchy, one above, one below, one divine, one not, one perfect, one flawed. It creates a distance, a separation. But Thomas destroys that separation. In this text, Jesus speaks as if the divine is not above you, but within you, waiting to be remembered. He speaks as if enlightenment is not granted by ritual, but unlocked through perception. This is a dangerous idea. To institutions, it collapses the ladder of authority. To seekers, it shifts the burden of truth inward, where many fear to look. Now imagine a world where this message had remained dominant. A world where the central Christian teaching was not "believe in me," but "know yourself." The entire trajectory of Western spirituality might look different. But let's go deeper. Why would Jesus avoid commanding worship in a text like Thomas? The answer is hidden in the type of teacher he is presented as. Not a savior who demands loyalty, but a revealer who exposes illusion. In mystical traditions worldwide, from Sufi saints to Buddhist bodhisattvas to the teachers of the Greek mystery schools, the true master doesn't ask for worship. They ask for transformation. They ask you to burn away the false self so the true one can step forward. The Thomas Jesus echoes this archetype. He teaches in riddles, because riddles force the mind to break its own walls. He teaches through paradox because paradox dislodges stagnant beliefs. He teaches through directness because truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Take another saying. If your leaders say to you, "Look, the kingdom is in the sky," then the birds will precede you. But the kingdom is within you, and it is outside you. He doesn't position himself as the object of worship. Instead, he positions consciousness itself as the field of realization. But here is the deeper, more mystical reason. Worship creates dependency, awakening creates freedom, and freedom was the true goal of the early Gnostic and mystical traditions. If you worship Jesus, the focus remains on him. But if you understand Jesus, the focus shifts to the truth he embodied. This is the subtle but profound distinction between a religion of devotion and a path of realization. Thomas is firmly in the second category, and there is one more layer, a hidden one. Worship externalizes power. It places the divine out there, somewhere unreachable. But Jesus in Thomas repeatedly pulls the divine back into the immediate, the personal, the tangible. The kingdom is already present. The light is already here. You are already connected. This message is so radical, so empowering, that it reframes everything. It reframes what Jesus was. It reframes what the soul is. It reframes what it means to seek truth. And in part 2, we will uncover the paradoxes, the hidden meanings, and the deeper implications. The reasons why this Jesus is not only different, but potentially transformative in ways the outer world was never ready to accept. To go deeper into why Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never says, "Worship me," we must step into the realm of paradox, the space where mystical teachings always live. Because Thomas is not simply a collection of sayings, it is a spiritual labyrinth. Every line is a doorway. Every doorway opens to another question. And the first paradox is this. Jesus in Thomas does not reject reverence. He transcends it. He speaks with the authority of a master, yet refuses to anchor that authority in himself. He gives guidance, but always redirects attention back to the seeker. He reveals mysteries, yet insists that the ultimate discovery must come from within. This paradox is critical. A teacher who demands worship builds followers. A teacher who refuses worship builds masters. Thomas reveals a Jesus far more interested in producing enlightened individuals than faithful adherents. Consider another of his radical statements. "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become as I am. I myself shall become that person." This line is explosive. It obliterates the traditional separation between the teacher and the taught. It suggests union, not through worship, but through realization. It paints Jesus not as a divine exception, but as a prototype of awakened humanity. This is not the Jesus of hierarchy. This is the Jesus of symmetry. In this worldview, to worship him would actually be to misunderstand him. It would be like worshiping a map instead of using it. But here's the second paradox. Thomas reveals a Jesus who is divine precisely because he does not demand divine treatment. Divinity, in this context, is not a title. It is a state of consciousness, a state that Jesus invites others into, rather than reserving for himself. This is why Thomas repeatedly emphasizes sight, perception, inner knowledge. Jesus says things like, "Know what is before your face, and what is hidden will be revealed to you." He never says, "Fall before me, offer sacrifices to me, kneel in my name." Why? Because worship is static, an act, but awakening is dynamic, a transformation. Now let's explore the hidden meaning beneath this. In mystical traditions, the greatest obstacle to enlightenment is projection, the tendency to place the truth out there onto gods, saviors, or external forces. The moment you worship something outside yourself, you unconsciously declare yourself separate from it. Jesus in Thomas dismantles this illusion. He refuses to become an idol because idols freeze the spiritual quest. He refuses to become an intermediary because intermediaries replace experience with obedience. He stands in front of the seeker, not as a wall between them and the divine, but as a mirror reflecting their own forgotten radiance. And this leads to the third paradox. The Jesus of Thomas removes himself so that the truth can reveal itself. For example, one saying claims, "The kingdom is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it." If the kingdom is already present, already accessible, then what role does a worshipped Savior play? None. Worship becomes irrelevant. The path becomes internal. But this is precisely why such teachings were misunderstood, even feared. A spirituality based on personal revelation disrupts all external authority. It decentralizes power. It decentralizes divinity. It decentralizes the sacred. And institutions cannot control a decentralized faith. This brings us to a deeper implication. The Jesus of Thomas represents a consciousness revolution, a revolution that had to be softened, reshaped, or set aside for Christianity to grow into a structured religious system. It wasn't malicious, it was inevitable. Ritual creates unity. Worship creates emotional cohesion. Institutions need both to survive. But the Thomas Jesus was not building an institution. He was building awakened individuals. Individuals capable of perceiving truth directly. Individuals capable of inner transformation. Individuals who no longer need intermediaries. In that world, every person becomes a temple. Every life becomes a path. Every moment becomes an opportunity to encounter the divine. This is the scandal of Thomas. This is its beauty. And this is why Jesus never said, "Worship me." Because if you did, you might miss the revelation he came to awaken. It's one thing to understand the philosophical depth behind why Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never said, "Worship me." It's another to live that understanding. Because if Thomas is right, if the divine is not an external figure to worship, but an inner flame to awaken, then the real work begins within you. This section is about turning ancient insight into daily practice. Not dogma, not ritual for its own sake, but direct experience, gnosis. Let's begin with the first and simplest technique. 1. The practice of inner seeing. In Thomas, Jesus repeatedly speaks about the importance of seeing, not with the physical eyes, but with a deeper internal perception. To practice this, spend a few minutes each day in quiet observation. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and for just a moment, drop the stories about who you are. Drop the roles, the expectations, even the spiritual labels. Ask yourself gently, what is here when I am no one? Don't seek an answer in words, seek the presence beneath them. This practice trains the mind to stop projecting outward and instead turn inward. Where the Thomas Jesus claims the kingdom already rests over time, this develops a subtle intuition, a clarity that begins guiding your decisions, relationships, and self-understanding. 2. The exercise of authentic awareness. Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you." This suggests that spiritual growth is not about adding anything, but revealing what is already inside. Try this simple exercise. Throughout your day, pause whenever you feel triggered, stressed, overwhelmed, or disconnected. In that moment, ask yourself, what emotion or truth is trying to surface in me right now? Instead of suppressing it or projecting it outward onto others, allow it to rise. Let it breathe. Let it speak. This is how hidden parts of the self become conscious. It is how inner fragmentation begins to heal. It is how deeper wisdom emerges. 3. The ritual of presence in the ordinary. One of the most extraordinary sayings in Thomas is, "Split a piece of wood, I am there." This is an invitation to discover the sacred in the ordinary, the holy in the mundane. Choose one simple daily activity: drinking tea, washing dishes, stepping outside, and transform it into a sacred ritual. While doing it, slow down. Feel the sensations. Notice the textures. Become completely present. What you are cultivating here is not superstition. It is awareness. The same awareness Jesus calls the kingdom spread across the earth. The more present you become, the more the divine reveals itself, not as a distant deity, but as the living moment unfolding in front of you. 4. Journaling the inner teacher. Because the Jesus of Thomas redirects seekers away from blind worship and toward inner revelation, one powerful practice is dialoguing with your own inner wisdom. Open a journal and write, "What truth am I avoiding right now?" Then, allow your intuition, not your logic, to answer. Write freely, without editing or judging. Over time, this practice uncovers your inner teacher, the part of you that Thomas suggests Jesus wanted you to meet. When this inner guide begins speaking clearly, you experience the shift Thomas describes, a movement from seeking authority externally to discovering it internally. 5. The practice of non-idolatry. Not worshiping Jesus is not about disrespect. It's about not replacing experience with symbol. A practical way to honor this is to take one belief, just one, that you have always accepted without question, and investigate it. Not to reject it, but to see if it truly aligns with your direct experience. This is the heart of the Thomas path. Truth discovered, not inherited. And when you begin living from this place, something profound happens. You stop outsourcing your spiritual power. You stop waiting for someone else to enlighten you. You begin to awaken the authority Thomas hints at, the authority already embedded in your being. The mystery of why Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never said, "Worship me," is not a historical curiosity. It's a spiritual invitation. An invitation to shift from seeking the divine outside yourself to awakening it within, to stop gazing upward at a distant power and begin listening inward to a familiar presence. Throughout this journey, you've seen that the Jesus of Thomas is not a figure who demands allegiance, but a guide who demands awareness, a teacher who refuses the pedestal, because the moment you place him on it, you stop walking your own path. You stop seeing yourself as a carrier of the same light he embodied. In Thomas, Jesus is the revealer, the one who uncovers the truth already trembling beneath the surface of your consciousness. He is the mirror that reflects your forgotten brilliance, and in that reflection lies the real secret. You are not meant to worship the light. You are meant to remember that you are the light. This is the message that institutions could not sustain, the message too liberating to control, a message that dissolves hierarchies, breaks chains, and returns authority to its rightful place, your own awakened awareness. But this isn't a rejection of reverence, it's a transformation of it. Instead of reverence for a figure, it becomes reverence for existence itself, for presence, for truth. For the moment you realize that the kingdom Jesus spoke of is not a distant realm, but the luminous field of consciousness you are experiencing right now. As you carry these insights forward, remember that the Gospel of Thomas doesn't offer answers. It offers doorways. It offers riddles that won't be solved with thought alone, but with the unfolding of your own inner clarity. If even one saying stirs something in you, follow that thread. Let curiosity guide you deeper. Let awareness show you what lies beneath habit, belief, and conditioning. And now, I leave you with the same question that the Thomas Jesus leaves all seekers. What is the truth you have yet to bring forth? If this journey stirred something within you, share your reflections below. Let this space become a living community of seekers who walk the path of inner knowing together.